When it comes to job creation, I touched on the fact we have to address our trade policies. There are two other areas that I think are key to helping our businesses create jobs. Number one, we have to address the corporate tax rate in America. At some of the debates, some of you are probably dealing with it as we speak, but at some of the debates you've probably heard me quote the statistic that here in the U.S. our state and federal combined corporate tax rate is at 39.3%, second only to Japan at 39.5%. Now, without question, we cannot expect American businesses to remain competitive if that's the challenge they face with their overseas counterparts. We've got to get that corporate tax rate lower. A representative out in Wisconsin or Wyoming, I believe it's Representative Ryan, he suggested actually eliminating the corporate tax and instead putting in place a business consumption tax. I would have to do a little bit more study before I told you that's what I was going to push for, but what I've read and what I've understand of his interpretation, it does appear as though that would be beneficial. But number two, not only do we deal with the trade policies, not only do we deal with the corporate tax rate, we've also got to be serious about addressing our energy costs. Not just because you and I are paying higher utility bills, but because it's having a very real impact on our economic situation and our company's abilities to be competitive. This is one thing that was very real to me as a county commissioner. I actually was honored to be the president of the Northeast Ohio County Commissioners Association and was involved in a lot of the economic development projects and efforts here in this part of the state. And over again, you would hear from prospective businesses or those that were seeking to expand how the costs of our utilities here in this part of the state were such a challenge to them becoming competitive with other counterparts. Without question, energy costs need to be addressed. How? I think if we're serious about becoming energy independent, we're going to have to drill for our own oil that God placed below our own soil. God bless the windmills and God bless the solar panels. We don't want to stop our research in that regard, and if we can in fact make them a part of our energy solution, that's outstanding. But the truth is, you don't achieve energy independence without seeking more oil right here in our own land. That means when you see the Green River Formation out west that supposedly has 800 billion barrels of oil under it, but it can't be tapped on federally owned lands, that means, you know what, we've got to lift the restrictions. I will say this, though, the only businesses that should be allowed to harvest that oil and that resource should be American-owned businesses. World. And, of course, offshore drilling as well. But the bottom line is oil drilling has to be a part of the permanent solution. So I guess we've covered a bunch of topics right there, but I'm going to wrap it up with this one real quick, and that is illegal immigration. First of all, the mere fact that we say illegal suggests that laws have been broken. And like any other laws, they should be enforced. And it seems as though for some reason the people in office in Arizona understand that. Yeah. The reality is that the federal government refuses to address the issues, then I think we do need to let those states who are very powerful in the beginning anyways, right? Because a certain 10th Amendment sends them a great deal of powers that aren't outlined in that Constitution. We need to let them address it. And the talk of amnesty in any form is unacceptable. I would oppose it, absolutely oppose it, for many reasons. This is a little off the record, not off the record, but a little off the path. But I will tell you, I think this is the issue that we all should be concerned about, for not just the fact that it will have a devastating impact on the country, but in particular over these next several months until we get to November and have a chance to replace our current congressman and many others across the country. Let's face it, if you're one of the current political leaders in Washington, you've already weighed out the circumstances and you see that you've no doubt lost the size of your majority by the passage of the health care bill. I have a feeling that if you and I were in those rooms and those discussions when they were trying to set the political stage for their next task they hope to accomplish, this one would have to rise to the top. Because this administration and these leaders have shown they're willing to take short-term election loss for long-term gain. And if they can grant amnesty in some form and make that be the case that there be 16 million to 20 million illegals here, look at the influence those individuals will have at the polls. And something tells me if they're dependent upon the government for benefits, they're not going to choose the candidate that runs and says he wants to cut government spending and roll back power from the federal government to the states. And so with that in mind, we've got to address that issue. And finally, I would just say this. It has been an honor to get to know so many of you over the last couple of months and be a part of the Tea Parties, be a part of the 912 groups, and just be a part of this district. Because these are good men and women living here. You know it because you live here. And the more and more as I drive down these roads at night by myself with the radio off, I think to myself, you know what? This is the district. These are the men and women that will, in fact, decide whether America has a future. And the reason? Because we still live in communities where we do cherish our traditional principles. Not just freedom, justice, and equality, but we understand that there is someone else in control that's guiding the events, and that if we call upon him and seek his blessing, he'll come through for us every time. It's those principles that made us the most prosperous nation in the world's history. And thank God here in the 16th district, the majority are still seeking that same creator as they seek to live a life that would be honoring to him. So I appreciate you listening, and I'll be glad to take your questions. Thank you.
A little bit of a change. We got 4 questions which we're asking all the candidates. If we got time, then we'll go to the floor. Okay, all right with you?
Then I'll have one comment. Maybe.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, first question. What is the purpose of the federal government?
What is the purpose of the federal government? National security, first and foremost. Beyond that, I think it's very specific. All you have to do is pull out your Constitution and read it. And like I said, the 10th Amendment tells us what? All the powers not specifically outlined here, they belong to the states. So I would say national security is the #1 purpose of the federal government.
How do you think we can help bring jobs back to the 16th district?
Kind of covered that.
Yes.
Like I say, the 3 points: address energy costs, lower the corporate tax rate, address our trade policies. If you wanted to throw in there, you could also talk about making sure we all have a strong workforce with adequate skills. But
okay. Is there a point at which you would be supportive of a VAT or other national sales tax? If so, what conditions would have to be in place?
I certainly would not be in support of the value-added tax. I think our president is already too much of a champion of European principles, and I don't care to see any more of them come to pass right here on the United States soil. I think that's part of the reason we have national health care, is because this seeming infatuation that he has with the other nations of the world, and with his desire to make us more like them. I would add to that, when it comes to a national sales tax, I would just say right up front, a sales tax, I do believe, is the most fair tax. Let's face it, whether it's at the county level, state level, or otherwise. But when it would come to the fair tax, and you've probably heard us talk about it before, the day could come, yes, when I would be ready to support the fair tax. In fact, I probably do now. The only reason that I hesitate even an inch is because of not fully understanding how the implementation takes place. And I understand that there would be no income tax, so the two should offset each other, but I'm not sure in my own mind how does it actually come to be, though, when a county government raises its revenue across the state of Ohio. County sales tax is what funds county government, and of course the state gets a portion of that. And so it would appear to me as though you have to make changes at all those levels simultaneously if in fact we could pull it off. I told a group the other night, I was at someone's home, I said the best way for us to get the fair tax through would be for the government to say, okay, next year we're not going to withhold any of your payroll taxes. We'll send you the bill at the end of the year. If people saw what the federal government is withholding from their check, which, let's face it, even educated people, they know what they take home, but they're not paying too close attention to what they're actually being removed from their check, I think that would create a situation where Americans would be overwhelmingly in favor of a fair tax. So I guess that would be my statement in regard to a sales tax.